Welcome, writers, readers, and friends to the Authors Talking Bookish podcast. I'm Donna Norman Carbone, author of All That Is Sacred.
And I'm Hope Gibbs, author of Where the Grass Grows Blue.
We're two debut writers traditionally published by a small publishing house, bringing to you all the experiences that we as authors learn the hard way, so you don't have to.
We'll give you insights from the inception of a book idea to publication and beyond. And along the way, we'll share our love of books from the writer's perspective.
Hello, friends. Welcome back. This is episode 57, Hooked from Page 1, Nailing Your Novel's Beginning. I am Donna Carbone, and I am joined by Hope Gibbs. Hi, Hope. How are you?
I'm great, Donna. How are you?
I am great. Settling into this beautiful fall weather. I'm absolutely loving it. And I'm getting ready for my very first baby shower that I'm throwing for my son and his fiance. They're having a baby in December. So I'm super excited. This is a good month. It's a good time.
Very exciting. I'm a sucker for fall. And a few weeks ago, I posted something on our Instagram about your fall bucket list and, the watching the leaves change and going to a football game. And of course, pumpkin spice latte. I think you really do like pumpkin spice.
I dive into everything pumpkin.
Yeah. The crazy thing is I love pumpkins, but I don't want it in my coffee. I love a pumpkin pie. I love a pumpkin roll. I just want my coffee plain.
I like my black coffee black. But when I'm having like a latte or a cold brew, which I usually have more as like in the afternoon, then I like pumpkin in it.
Okay, I did not know that about you. You like a cold brew.
Yeah, I do.
Oh, okay. I learned something about you all the time. I don't like cold coffee. That's another thing about me. No, I can't do it.
Wow.
I am so basic
on that.
I am so basic. I just like hot coffee, black. I don't like tea. I don't like iced tea. I know that sounds crazy. I'm from the South, but if you put a bunch of fruit,
sweet tea,
if you put fruit juice in it, then I will drink it. Or if you do lemonade, I do like half and half. But
I do too.
Yeah.
So we actually make it that way at my house. We do like one packet of lemonade, one packet of iced tea.
Really? My grandmother, she used to love tea, and she used to do that sun tea back in the day. And I read an article not long ago that really is not, it can get very dangerous. It can grow bacteria. Yes. And I'm like, my grandmother did it all the time. So,
wow.
Yeah, the things we learn.
I know. So what are you reading these days?
So you know how I love Nantucket. I love Ellen Hildebrand, and she has stopped writing women's fiction. She has a new book out that is more young adult, and I have not read that, but I wanted to go back to the island that I love so much. Yeah. And so I stumbled across this book called The Nantucket Restaurant by Pamela Kelly. And it's a coming back home scenario. The grandmother has died. She had this restaurant, and the granddaughters have to come back to Nantucket to work in the restaurant to get their inheritance. And you know me, I'm just a sucker for coming back home stories. But I love everything about Nantucket. And so my Kindle gave me the recommendation because, and I love that about my Kindle. It sees kind of what I like to read, and it gives me kind of those stories. And this was one of its suggestions. So I took it up.
I have heard about Pamela Kelly. Is she a good writer?
Yes. I'm not finished. I'm still very new into the book, but yeah, I'm a sucker for that. And I'm going to bring back this cover for those of you who are watching on YouTube.
I love that.
I love this cover. And Nantucket makes me happy. I hope to get back up there in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I would love to go with you. I love Nantucket.
We should do that. See, it's so close for you.
Yeah. I just drive and then take a ferry from High.
When I went to Nantucket, we flew. We did not take the ferry. So maybe I should try the ferry.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
So what about you? What are you reading?
So I'm reading A Layer of Fine Dust, and it's by our very good friend, Barbara Conry, who actually will be on our show later on this season. Yes. It is her third book. It just came out October 6th, and it's doing very well. I haven't finished it yet. It is It's a story about old wounds, and old wounds that go unhealed often resurface when we least expect them to. And so it's centered on that. The thing that I love about it is that it's a women's fiction, but
Mhm.
it's told in the perspective of a husband whose wife has decided to become a surrogate for another couple. And
Oh,
so he's kind of tormented because something from his past comes up that it kind of throws a wrench in the whole thing. So,
wow. Okay,
yeah.
that is not what I expected. So,
Yeah.
yeah, because I have it on my list to read because obviously you and I both adore Barbara, and I've read both of her first two books. Okay, I can't wait to read that. That's
Yeah.
didn't expect the
The male POV.
yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
expect that. So, yeah,
It's really good. She does a great job with the male voice.
well, of course
And
she's gonna do a
she's
great job.
just so
She's
talented.
so
Yeah.
talented.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
well, I can't wait for that episode, and that's coming up at the very end of the year.
Yeah, December. So we'll
Wow.
see Barbara in December and she'll
Uh,
talk all about it.
okay, well, let's talk about what we're here for today. What
Sure.
what what is this episode all about?
So, Hooked from Page One is about hooking your reader from the very first page. Because, as we know, if you are sending it out to editors and agents, sometimes they stop reading before the end of page one. So, we thought we would dedicate an entire episode to talking about how to craft a strong opening to hook your reader, give them a sense of voice and character right from page one.
Okay, well, let's dig in. So the
Yeah.
first thing is why openings matter, and exactly what Donna said, because readers and agents and editors will sometimes decide within the first page whether to keep on reading. And we had a very interesting guest not long ago who discussed this, and he said that he
Mm.
can tell within the almost like the first paragraph if
Yeah.
he's going to keep going.
Yeah.
And so we were just so taken by that. So we wanted to talk about it. Um, the opening sets the tone, the genre, and the expectations immediately. And a strong opening has a higher chance of engagement and being
Yeah.
memorable.
How many times have you looked at a book and thought, I do this all the time when I'm choosing what to read next? I'll read the first page and say, okay, which one hooks me? And I'll go with that book.
Okay, so I am not that way. I if I get a book, I'm just going to start reading it.
Yeah.
Um, but certain books obviously draw me in quicker. I'm more of the cover has to speak to me first. If
Yeah.
the cover, and I know that's awful, but if the cover doesn't resonate with me, I don't typically pick it up. But if I pick up a book, I'm not one of those do not finish. I'm not that kind of a person.
Yeah.
But certain books, and we're going to talk about it at the end because we're both going to talk about some of the most memorable openings. Certain books definitely stand out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a strong hook just keeps you reading,
Absolutely.
wanting
And
more.
yeah, so let's talk about some key elements of a strong opening. Do you want to start, Donna?
Sure. I think the first thing is a strong, compelling first line that grabs your reader's attention immediately. And I can't wait to share some of our favorites. Also, including a good sense of the main character and
Mhm,
what the main characters, what's at stake in this story, what the conflict is, um, setting the tone
mhm.
or giving us like a glimpse of the setting. Where does this take place? Like you were just talking about the Nantucket book. It's
Yes.
important to kind of give us the atmosphere of Nantucket and where the story is going to take place. And lastly, really giving us a sense of voice in the story. Like whose voice is this? Is this someone? Is this a character that we're going to empathize with? Is it a character that we're going to be at odds with? How strong is their voice?
Yeah. I the voice perspective, that's something that as you're writing or as you're a reader, the first line will tell you what kind of POV this is going to be, or are we in a first person, which is I think more intimate. When I read
I
a
think so
first
too.
person book, or if I'm writing, because my second book is first person POV, I feel like that the reader is a little bit more connected versus more of a narrator, more of an
Right.
omniscient narrator, or from that character's POV.
Yeah.
So let's talk about techniques that work. And you were the one who brought this one in. Start in the middle of action. What do
Mm.
you mean by that?
So you don't want to start with backstory because that's going to bore your reader.
Yes.
You want to start right in the middle of the action because that way you can hook the reader in to want to find out more. Like, where is this going? And that's something that I work really hard with in my openings, particularly in my third book that I have coming out. I start like right in the middle of a scene
Yeah.
instead of at the beginning of a scene. So you feel that tension immediately and it draws you in.
Yeah. I think that's a great tip. Another one is open with a striking or unexpected detail.
Yeah.
So that's something that I did in my second book that I am editing right now, finishing the epilogue. Um, it's an My beginning is a very unique situation, not something that you want to find yourself in. And at first you don't know what you're in, but then by page 2, you know this setting.
Mhm.
So it also gives you a great way to play with your characters because you're putting your character maybe in an uncomfortable position or a no-win, situation at the very beginning.
Right.
So another thing is pose a question or a mystery that demands an answer. Okay, you want to give a little background on this one?
Yeah, I think that goes with the previous two, right?
Yeah,
You want to spark some kind of need in your reader to need to move forward. And
yeah.
if you pose a question, they're going to be thinking about that and they're going to want an answer to it. Or
Mhm.
if you create some sense of mystery, they're going to want to find out, like, what is this mystery about? What do I need to uncover? So you're really drawing your reader in with that third one for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
There's also, and this is another great tip, is use sensory details to ground the reader immediately.
Yeah.
So, as we're talking about, the smells, is
Mhm.
there music? Is there a feeling? Like, use your sensories, use all of your senses. The five senses is what we're talking about in with that tip.
Yeah, and I think that dovetails into the second one too, like, or the next one, which is show don't tell. You really
100%.
Yeah, you really want to, and I think using those 5 senses is a good way to show not tell, because you're giving the reader the details to make up their own mind.
Yeah, and don't over explain.
Yeah,
And as a new writer, when I was writing my first book, I wanted to give you all this backstory
everything. Yeah,
immediately. And, after I finished my book, I'm like, well, I can't start like this. I
yeah,
have to put my character in a position and then later on let the backstory weave in. You don't have to introduce
mhm,
everything about this character in the first 10 pages.
yeah.
So give little hints, but yes, don't give a complete
Yeah,
backstory.
keep your reader guessing. They wanna keep guessing.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about pitfalls, common
Mhm.
pitfalls to avoid. Just what I was just saying, one of the number one is info dumps and in the very first pages.
Right.
I made that mistake, I said, with the first one, and with the second
Mhm.
one, I knew better.
Yeah,
But don't bog down your reader with so much details that they they don't have a story. They just
right.
have backstory.
Yeah. Yeah, also, not opening with generic openings, which is kind of the antithesis of starting in the middle of something. Like, don't start at the beginning of a scene, like waking up from a dream or waking up in the morning. I remember that was the mistake that I made with my very first book that still is on the shelf. Um, but I had her waking up in the morning to an alarm. And one of the agents replied to me and told me never to start a book with that, because it's too generic, it's too overdone, and you will lose your reader.
Wow. That is
Yeah.
very good advice.
Yeah, it was.
And then another, and this kind of goes back to the beginning of with the info dump, is overly complex world building before you can ground the reader. So,
Yeah.
especially if this is, like a fantasy, or, you're establishing a completely, maybe a sci-fi, you have to lay it down step by step. Don't just give it all to them at once. You need that emotion. Books, to me, for at least for me, I read about characters. That's
Mhm.
why I read. I want to know about what motivates them. And
Mhm.
sometimes, yes, the setting is very important, but if there's too much, I start zoning out.
You also, I think, want to, especially with this one, I think you want to leave gaps in what you've written, and you have to be like very precise about it because you want to leave enough room for the reader to be able to imagine. So you're
Hmm.
not telling the reader, like giving them every single detail, because
Yes.
part of the fun of reading is imagining what these two characters look like, or imagining the cityscape that they're in. So you give them just enough details, so you're creating an atmosphere, but you're not giving them too much that the reader can't use their imagination.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go to the next one, practical strategies for writers. This is an interesting concept. Write multiple openings, experiment with different entry points. Have you
Yeah, I
done this
love that.
yourself?
I actually, when I wrote All That Is Sacred, I did that because I wasn't sure what voice I wanted to write that in. If I wanted first person POV, second person
Mhm.
POV. And sometimes I'll do this with my writers too. I'll have them do an opening to a story and then write it in another POV and another POV. Just to kind of, I don't know, I feel like there's a point where you feel and you hear and you read what is the right voice.
Ah, good. That is a good point. Another thing is ask, does my opening make a reader want to ask what happens next? And that's the key. That first page, you want to have some kind of a hook where they're like, oh, well, I'll keep flipping. I want to
Mm,
know, how is this character going to get out of this, or who is this character? Because it doesn't always have to be, an inciting incident that happens, but you want to make it where they want to keep turning the page.
right. It's kind of like chapter endings too. Like you never want to end a chapter at the end of something. You always kind of want to leave them hanging a little bit at the end of a
Yeah.
chapter so they open the first chapter. Like how many times have you read a book where you're like, okay, I'm going to stop reading now, but then you get to the end of the chapter and you're like, oh no, I can't stop reading. I
Yeah.
have to find out what happens next.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
This is also a good idea. Share with beta readers and pay attention to where they get hooked. And you've done this a lot. I have been one of your beta readers, and you have questions and
Mhm.
whatnot. How have you used beta readers to determine if you're on the right track at the beginning?
I think by asking them the right questions. I do ask them if at any point they zoned out, to let me know where those areas are, whether it's in the middle of the manuscript or the beginning. But particularly asking questions about, at what point did you get super hooked?
Oh, that is a good idea. And finally, revise the opening last. Once you know your story, you can start crafting it for the best starting point. And I'm doing that currently. I
Mhm.
have finished my book, and I have gone back and I have rewritten and like really just focused the most on those first 10 pages. And you've read it twice now.
Yeah.
And so just, and I think that that's a great
And
idea
there was
that,
a big difference from the first time to the second time. Both were really good, but I could tell immediately the second time was much tighter.
yeah, and so I love that advice of
Mm.
finish your book and then go back in, because now you know what you have.
Right. And this is one of the things I learned the hard way because I wrote All That Is Sacred. I rewrote the first chapter like 3 times. I sent it to the editor at Red Adept and she sent it back to me and she said, "You're not starting in the right place. We need you to write a brand new first chapter." And so by default, I learned how useful that could be, because at that time I had finished the entire story. I'd never gone back and rewritten chapter 1 after I finished the whole book. I cleaned it up a little bit, but I didn't completely rewrite it. So I took little nuggets from throughout the book and kind of put them in chapter 1. So people, as they were reading, they could go back to a hint that they'd been given in chapter 1.
I love that. So why don't we switch gears a little bit, which we had talked
Sure.
about at the top of the show, of our favorite openings, or it doesn't necessarily have to be our favorites, but openings that really spoke to us, or, or some of them are actually very famous. So
Yeah.
Donna, why don't you go first? Here are some of yours.
So when I did this, I use an exercise with my AP composition class where I have them read and analyze opening sentences to to books. So some of these are directly from the ones that we do, just to analyze, like, how hooked are they? What kind of sentence structure are they using? What details are they using? Are they showing, not telling? So these were a few of mine. Kristen Hanna from The Nightingale, which I know a lot of our viewers have read. If I have learned anything in this long life of mine, it is this: in love, we find out who we want to be, and in war, we find out who we are.
Yeah.
And so right there, she opens up like the two major themes of her novel in just the first sentence. And she has the reader asking the question and wanting to know, is that true? Is that true? Do we find out who we want to be in love and who we are in war? And that's what we're going to learn through this book.
Yeah. And what's another one? Because I love this, because you love Mrs. Dalloway. Why don't you read that opening? You love that. And I'm going to read that book.
You have to read that book. It's so good. Mrs. Dalloway said she would buy the flowers herself. And I think this one kind of begs the question, like, why herself? Like, who is she? Why would somebody else be buying her flowers? What is she buying flowers for? Why are flowers and how are flowers significant to this story? And who is Mrs. Dalloway?
Yeah. Love that. And why don't you tell the other ones you have?
Okay. So I have Imagine a Ruin So Strange, It Must Never Have Happened. This is one of my favorite books by Barbara Kingsolver, The Poisonwood Bible. And it just, I think it kind of begs the question, like, what's so strange about this ruin?
Yeah.
And what didn't happen or shouldn't have happened? The next one is The Kite Runner from Khalid Hosseini. I probably botched his name. I became what I am at the age of 12 on a frigid, overcast day in the winter of 1975. And so we know that the main character goes on quite the journey where it concerns friendship and loyalty. And at the end, it's kind of like he does a really nice job, like in a cyclical way, because at the end of the novel, he really addresses who he is.
Love that.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing that has been helpful, I heard this advice about your sentence structure. A very well-known agent was, don't make all of your sentences the same length. She likes the diversity of lengths of your sentences. So I've really tried to do that, especially with my second book. And it does make for more interesting. It just makes it more interesting. So for me, I chose this opening line of all this happened more or less. And this is from Slaughterhouse-Five. And it's such a small sentence, but immediately you're like, what does that even mean? It happened more or less. Is this this narrator, are they truthful, or so that one I thought was a very catchy one. Of course, Moby Dick, the beginning, I think that's probably, would you not think, Call Me Ishmael? Do you think that that's one of the most famous opening lines in all of literature?
I think it's got to be. I think it's got to be. I mean, you hear that sentence and you know exactly where it came from.
Yeah, exactly where it came from. And I, as a student, did not love that book. But but I appreciate it now. It's so much. It's
Yeah.
so funny. We should talk about books that we didn't appreciate when we were younger that we really appreciate now. We should do a show on that. Another one is, this one is from Jane Austen in Pride and Prejudice. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in a possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. I mean, it's perfect. It's Jane Austen. And then finally, as everyone knows, I love The Hunger Games. And this is the beginning. It says, when I wake up, the other side of the bed is cold. My fingers stretch out, seeking Prim's warmth, but finding only the rough canvas covers of the mattress. She must have had a bad dream and climbed in with our mother. Of course she did. This is the day of the reaping. So immediately, you know, I feel like I'm in that room with Katniss. And you know that this person, Prim, is important, has to be a sister, but she gets you at the very end, the reaping. And as someone who had never read The Hunger Games, I'm like, well, what on earth is a reaping?
Right.
And so, yeah, and you feel it, like the mattress. She doesn't use big words.
No.
But in that one opening, I'm in that room.
Yeah, she definitely creates an atmosphere there right away that you need to know more about.
Well, I've loved this discussion. And as our teacher, I know that you have a do now for us. What is our do now for our audience?
So I included a link to 100 of the best first lines in literature, and there's many different variations. Many of them have a lot of the same books on them, though. I would look through that list and just pay attention to the first sentences. What kind of sentences are they? Are they long? Are they short? What aspect of the elements of a good opening are in that very first sentence? Can you find character? Can you find conflict? Can you find atmosphere? And then what I think you should do is take a look at your own first line, or if you haven't written one yet, try several versions. As we mentioned earlier, try several versions of the opening paragraphs, just to see what you think is going to be most gripping for your reader. And the last suggestion is to have other people read it, put other eyes on it, and ask them which hooked you the quickest and why.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Okay. So as always, everyone, you can find us on Instagram, Apple, Amazon, YouTube, and Spotify. And Donna, before we leave, what is our next episode?
Our next episode, we get to chat with a friend of ours. Her name is Joanna Monahan, and she is the author of Something Better, which is a great book about attending reunions. So I can't wait to talk to her.
I love it. Well, thank you for joining us, everyone. And until next time.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm Hope Gibbs.
And I'm Donna Norman Carbone. It's time for you to get to work.
We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks with another tip from your author friends.